Stop! Don't turn your device. You have entered into a new outlook, a new perspective, a new understanding. It's a new view. Your hosts are Elvira Craig, Rianne Dean, and Jeanette Huxley, Arlia Mann, and Joanne Romano. Get ready and welcome to A New View.
Hello, hello. Welcome all to a new view. We are so delighted that you are here. Excited. Some more ladies will be joining us in a few minutes. I'm excited. A new view is a biblical look at current events, breaking news, relationships. We just bring that biblical view, which we think is a delightful view. So this week, well, I should say today, this segment we're going to be talking about marriage, okay? And so, as the other of our hosts join us, we're going to be going over a special book, which is a book called Journey to the Watering. And this is the journal to it. Journey to the Watering. It's a book about a married couple and their challenges, okay? And so, before we get into that, I want to tell you that we want you to make sure you click to subscribe because you want to be able to get up the updates when we're going to come on the air. You want to not miss the program, miss the podcast. And then also make sure you like and share because that's really important so that we can get the word and the message out, with everyone. Now, the information about the book is on the banner that's scrolling right there. You can see that how you can purchase it. You can get the book on Amazon, but the book in the journal, you got to use the email address herstory.ec@gmail.com. We can rush you out a copy, and that's going to be scrolling down there. So it's wonderful. We get a chance, ladies, to talk about marriage, okay, on this. So I'm going to give you a little bit background on Journey to the Watering. It's a fictional book that I wrote, but it's actually not fictional. Fictional. I just had to write it and cover the names.
The names have been changed to protect
I
the
know,
innocent.
feel the innocent, right? And because my husband and I, through the years, over 20 some years, we've counseled so many couples. And so, being able to do this book, pulling from different situations and different issues, this book seems to cover that and show, the multiple different issues, but God has them all. And so, this book, Journey to the Water, and here's the book again that we're going to be going through. Again, get this on Amazon, or you can write herstory.ec@gmail.com and get your copy. You're going to want to get your copy because this is a wonderful fiction book about a couple who have to really now trust God for their marriage. So we're going to be going through it. So this segment will go on for a couple of weeks at a time, but it's going to be really, really good. So I'm going to introduce myself and then tell you how many years I've been married, and we're going to go on to the rest of the hosts. And as you can see, all of our hosts are in. So my name is Elvira Craig, and I have been married. Now listen, let's see, let's go. 1996. Don't let my husband know because he's always saying, "Why don't you ever remember?" So guess what? It'll be 29 years on April the 20th. Woo-hoo! Okay. Pastor Aaliyah.
Um, Hi, my name is Alia Mann, and I have been married 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Um,
I'm Pastor Ian Dean, and this year makes 20 years.
mm. Okay, here go drum roll. We're all getting ready to be shadowed out. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ann, and I'm going on 40 years this
Oh.
August.
Oh my goodness. And she's not in Prison Orange. She actually looks lovely.
Yep.
Oh,
And I'm Minister Anjanette. I've been married for 23 years.
I'm the baby, so I'm the baby of the group.
yeah, you're the baby of the group when it comes to marriage, you know. And for me, this is my second marriage. Our first marriage was 11 years, and now this one, actually, it'd be 29, so you can see I'm a person that believes in marriage, right?
Mhm.
For me. And so, again, for our listening audience, we're going to be going through Journey to the Water. And again, the information is down there scrolling. I suggest that you get this, get it on Amazon, or you can send an email at herstory.ec@gmail.com. I'm going to start with chapter 1 and give a synopsis of what's happening in the lives of these two people. And when we finish, now, if you have questions, there's a little echo someplace. I don't know where it's at, but you guys check and see. But if you have questions or comments, put them right there. We'll try in the second half of the podcast to be able to answer or try to address some of your questions as our listening audience is there. So again, here we go. Okay, I have chapter 1. And chapter 1 of Journey of the Water is called The Locket. And it's a story of a lady named Kim. And I picked Kim because I didn't have a soul in my life named Kim. So then I didn't have to worry about it. I have so many ladies that I know, but I didn't have one named Kim. So watch I get one named Kim. Anyhow, Kim and her husband's name is Ivan. And the story starts off chapter 1, The Locket. And it starts off with the drama of their marriage being broken, and she's about to give up. She's about to give up. And she's reminiscing when she doesn't even recognize herself because of trauma of what they've gone through. She's wondering, where is the lady that used to be happy, optimistic, upbeat? And this whole situation has even made her unidentifiable to herself. And so she's in the garden, she digs through it, and she drops her glass of water, and she's like, oh my goodness, that's how my life is. It's all spilled out, soaked away, God, and I'm ready to give up on my marriage. And as she's sitting down and as she slumbers off, she remembers her grandmother gave her a locket and talked about how she viewed her grandmother's marriage and how she thought it would be so wonderful for to be married. And here she finds herself in a troubled situation with her marriage. And so she falls asleep, and then all of a sudden she's startled and she wakes up with her hand on her shoulder, and she's alarmed, and it's her daughter. That's chapter 1. You're gonna have to read it to get all the details. And I think I go on, I think it's you, Pastor Ann, right? So chapter 2. Who's chapter 2? Oh, Joanne, that's right. Joanne is chapter 2.
I'm chapter 2. So we see this hopeful expectation of Emma and Kim. Kim is the mom, and Kim and Ivan are the couple who are the married couple with a marriage in distress, really on life support at this point. Well, Kim is with her daughter Emma, and they get a call that they have to run to the hospital, that her Emma's first granddaughter is on its way early. And so knowing that Ivan, the husband, Kim's husband, was there with Kim's daughter, Kim called Ivan to get information, tell me what's going on, give me insight to the situation. Well, because their marriage was not in the best health in the moment, Ivan chose to not answer directly and be a source of comfort and direction. Instead of that, he chose to use it as an unfortunate teaching moment, an untimely lesson, as the chapter is titled. And with his response, it just created a second crisis, crime scene number 2. It was a crisis within a crisis. And Kim had to navigate this storm at what should have been exciting, completely joyful moment in her life. But because her marriage was on life support, it caused unnecessary pain as they rushed to the hospital without having information. Ivan chose to not communicate clearly, and so they arrived at the hospital in fear and trembling. And that's where we move to chapter 3.
So in chapter 3, we discovered that the news is that actually she's expecting twins. So it wasn't anything to be fearful or worried about. And as Joanne said, he caused some unnecessary panic with Kim. And so the family starts to gather. Now we're gathering at the hospital. Different family members are being called. The aunt calls and she's saying, I know a lot's going on with your marriage right now. Maybe I should stay at a hotel. And Kim just kind of loses it. She demands, no, you're staying with me, no questions asked. And the sister is saying, and Sophie's saying, well, what's going on? Why are you kind of so on edge right now? And so Kim just kind of goes off on this whole tangent about how Ivan chose that moment to have this teaching moment and not just give her the information, caused her to stress out. And she's saying that he wants me to trust him. And, can you believe the nerve? But obviously, her sister Sophie can tell something is wrong. She's kind of on, a level 10 right now. And even though she's stepped into the hallway to take the phone call, her daughter Emma comes out and she's saying, Mom, you have to calm down. Like, you're disturbing other patients here in the hospital. So now we see that Kim's stress level is really, kind of reached its max, reached her capacity. And Olivia, the mother that's giving birth in the hospital, she even asked for prayer. And even when it's time to pray, Kim is still kind of on a level 10. Someone else has to step in and pray for her. Emma comes out and tells her dad, hey, Mom is upset. You need to talk to her. But he kind of dismisses it and pushes it off and says, I'll talk to her later. And then Emma goes on to have lunch with her grandfather. And that's where it's kind of left with there not being a resolve between Ivan and Kim at the hospital.
And that leads us to who?
So we get to the unraveling. And Ivan does something that I can attest to.
Uh-oh.
They don't want to, I don't want to talk to you right now. And now all of a sudden he wants to talk. And then he leaves the hospital, and that pushes the envelope even more with Kim. That's like almost pushing her over the edge. And she's fussing at Ivan because he left the hospital. And why you want to call? Why are you calling me? You know what's going on. And he just wants to be able to sit and talk. And the thing that I love is that, she went in the stall and she had her cry. She had a lot of those cries. She had her cries. But then he began to realize, after talking to his dad, he began to realize where his fault in everything. And he prayed a sincere, heartful prayer. And after that prayer, it just tickled me that he thought after the prayer, Kim will listen to me now.
One hit wonder.
I mean, I love the prayer. It was sincere. And he thought after this prayer, my thinking was, okay, he like, yeah, she gonna listen to me now. She gonna listen. I done cried out to God. My heart done cried out to God. And Kim is like, I ain't talking to you. Because being transparent. Seriously, being transparent is like, I want to talk when I want to talk. But he didn't understand the whole ramifications of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And
another atypical. Go on.
Yeah, and but she was like, I don't want to talk to you now. And we get like that. We need to talk now. But like she told him, where was you when I wanted to talk? Where was you then? And then they had an emergency. They had to rush back. They had to rush back to the hospital. But I love the fact that they always had family encouraging them. They always had family saying, let's pray. And it is funny to me that she never answered her phone to be a doctor. Never. Top it all off. I got everything going on, and now y'all want to say I'm not answering my phone. Okay, Pastor.
She's passing it.
All right, and that takes us, I guess, to chapter 15,
But
where it says, I'm sorry, chapter 5. It's been a day, y'all. Chapter 5, where it's like, oh, it matters now. So now we're on this part. So, you know, it just goes into just going along with all of what everyone else said about like what led up to that. Oh, now it matters. And I like what you were saying, Pastor Arlia, about he said that prayer. And he said a couple other prayers, but he still was expecting it to happen immediately, right? And especially during the time where now he wants to get counseling. When she asked for counseling, like almost, I think it was 10 months ago, almost a year ago. Now it matters. Now, and it's, and to your point, Pastor Craig, it is typical. When we ask, she'll be all right. But then when it comes time for like, you know, when they see that it's crumbling out all the way, okay, now I'm ready. And we're supposed to just jump, you know, it's that, you know, I tell you to jump and I'm supposed to ask you how high. No, it does not work like that with human nature, especially with us women. You know, I like that in it, you know, basically what God did was he gave her the insight and the foresight before it even got to that point. That's why she went to him in the first place. But in his mind, he was saying, oh, she'll be fine. We've gotten through this, you know, through this before. And then chapter 5 just goes into where, you know, she goes home to take a shower to, you know, just to relax because she had been at the hospital pretty much most of the day. And then he comes in saying, you know, we need to talk. Like after she just got through telling him, you need to wait until after, you know, the baby is born. I already gave you the answer. You think coming to me a second time is going to change that? So, you know, he kept going, of course, trying to get her to just to you know, change her mind so that they can talk now. It's almost like what you were saying, Arlia. He want to like resolve it right now. He want to resolve months, maybe even years, honestly, of issues right then and there. It don't work that way.
Right.
So, you know, this one just kind of segues into how the dynamics of husband and wives work, where a wife will come to a husband first to prevent it to getting to that point, and how the husband procrastinates. I know it's resonating with a few people until it's to the point where it's almost to where, I don't want to say it's not repairable, because with God, everything is repairable, but now you got to put in the work. We just not going to talk and it's going to automatically be like, you know, rainbows and unicorns. No, you waited too long for that. So now, you know, now he's going to have to work for that. You know, he's going to work his way back to get back to that, you know, that the marriage, you know, as far as the relationship that they had before. I also love, and I don't think that was in chapter 5, how God even shows us through the way we live. He realized with the relationship that he has with his son, that he really hasn't had that relationship with God. He's only reached out to God when he needed him. So I love that in that
was
it
the
even
prayer in
correlates.
chapter 4.
Right, chapter 4, how God gives us so many examples in our earthly life, how we should be with him in our spiritual life. So yeah, now it matters. You know, I just love that part.
I like where his dad told him, I think it was in the earlier chapters, you thought that everything was going to be okay after whatever you did. And you just kind of like, okay, we'll get over it. But that's not how we think.
But he didn't think it was that bad. Remember, that was the
right. That's
he did. He thought it was.
He didn't think it was that bad. You know, oh,
we got through this before.
Yeah, but you know, when you have did something that shakes a woman's trust, whether it's a woman that shakes a man's trust or a man that shakes a woman's trust, it's gonna take a minute.
Yeah, when you shake your trust in a marriage. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it's going to take a minute, and it's going to take a whole lot of prayers and a whole lot of help me Jesus.
Right. But the audacity that she came to him 10 months ago for counseling.
Yes.
Then he gonna turn around and realize, oh, maybe I should have agreed to the counseling, and now he wants the counseling 10 months later.
Right. I do like the fact that Pastor Boyd.
I know.
I like the fact that Pastor Boyd didn't just say, "Oh yeah, okay, come on," but he was like, "Okay, you didn't talk to your wife yet." He was letting him know, okay, you need to discuss it with wifey first. Then you can come to me, and then we can sit down and talk about it. Because sometimes we get to that point where, because when I was, in chapter 5, when I was reading it, she was more like, "Oh no, it ain't gonna be on your terms."
That part.
Now you want it on your terms. That's not how this gonna work.
That part.
No,
You're gonna
it's
have
not
to
your
work for it.
terms. But it really wasn't, because she was in that headspace. It really wasn't his terms. It was the fact that, like you said, God began to show him where their relationship went wrong, and when he began to cry out to God and ask God to forgive him and to show him what to do and how to do. That's why he came to her like that. But he was in that headspace, like, we'll get up. And when I wanted to talk to you, you didn't want to talk. Oh, but now you want to talk. Okay, well, I don't want to talk right now.
Yeah.
Just let me stay in my little
Joanne was getting ready to say, what were you getting ready to say, Joanne?
Well, what happened was when they had the original fork in the road, when their marriage started to have problems, right? And she recognized it first. And that's very typical, I would say, in a marriage. Women are much more in tune to our emotions, and we're much more willing to share. We're used to being in that position of let's just hash it out and get through it. And I think men really struggle with the vulnerability that women are comfortable with. And so they see vulnerability as weakness. And so they choose to push it back, and it's the thing about this book is it doesn't matter if you're married 10 years or you're married 40 years.
True.
The same relational things occur. We protect ourselves, which is where when they started to go at a fork in the road and she's ready to talk, now these are her terms, right? Because she's ready to talk. Let's do it now. He's not there yet because he's not in touch with his feelings. He doesn't even realize that he's doing and saying the unthinkable, the hurtful things that he's doing and saying, because she's probably become an old shoe to him. They're familiar with each other. Obviously their child is old enough to have a child. So they've been married for a while. They're comfortable with each other. And so they just kind of fell into this rhythm. And when they got a stone in their shoe and she said, "Hey, I got a stone in my shoe," he didn't have a stone in his shoe. So he's not ready to talk about it. He's like, "What are you talking about?" That is like the last thing that a guy wants to do. Okay, yeah, let's go there, because they are not good at that, right? So with the passage of time, the 10 months, she, like women do, adapted. She filled those gaps.
Absolutely.
And she filled it. Instead of being reliant on him now, she filled it her own way, whatever it was, her friends, her kids, her whatever it was, that she didn't no longer rely on him, which is when he finally woke up and realized, wait a minute, where is my wife? Because that fork in the road had spread like this. And so when she reached out to him and said, "I need you to give me this information," he said, "Wait a minute, I have the upper hand." Now, he didn't think this through. It was just kind of I got something that she don't have, so I'm going to keep it for myself, and I'm going to be in control of our relationship. So, just come on down. So now it was manipulation is really what it was in the moment. It was a control, passive aggressive way to manipulate the situation. And the dad saw it. Ivan's dad saw it. Why?
He did.
Because he recognized the offense. probably, because he probably experienced it in his own marriage, because this is not an uncommon thing, right?
Mm.
So,
But you think the sleeping in separate beds?
yeah, I mean, it's
Right,
a
she said
big
the
difference.
glaring
rooms.
sign right there.
Yeah, she
Right.
had resigned herself to, I'm going to make a life for myself. I don't care what he going to do, but I'm going to do me.
Right.
I'm
Family
going to do
members
me.
are noticing. So now all those gaps that she's filled in her life, she's becoming a different person. She's becoming independent of him.
Mhm.
And so when he finally woke up and realized that, he's doing whatever he can to try and control it, which is the wrong way. And now all of a sudden he's ready. He's ready because he's probably panicked. You know, he realized how close to the cliff he was in the moment.
Yeah, but that's the trick. That's really the trick of the enemy in that like that fork in the road, I like how Joanne said it. That's when he worked so hard to dull your heart. You know, she said, I'm numb, and I heard at the same time. Remember when she said that in that,
Right.
and that's what usually happens, because you got to cope. This is a physician, but if it's not a physician, she could be a waitress. You still got to cope with life. And you can't walk around crying with everybody.
Right.
You got to come up with an alternative.
Right. And I really felt for her in this situation because here, like I said, she probably had a sense of entitlement to this moment. You know, she's going to be a grandma. This is her daughter having a baby and a baby girl. Like, this is a blessing. And here he turns around and spoils it for her with his stupid way to give her a timing. But the good thing was, his dad saw it and he kind of rebuked him. He's like, dude, now was not the time for that.
Right.
I commend him for doing that. How many men would have turned the blind eye or, just been like, yeah, you too, buddy, or whatever. Misery loves company, right? But instead of doing that, he corrected him and said, you should handle it this way.
I love their family dynamic. Because
the value
they each, you know what? Let's pray. Or if they weren't praying, like her mother-in-law said, some of my pages in my book are not all good.
Right.
Some of my pages in my book is full of tears.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more is full of praises, but some of the pages in my book, and I love that because sometimes people think that because you're saved, your marriage is so perfect and so good, and it's like you're like no.
And the devil loves offense. He loves to use offense because it's an easy way to split churches, to split people, split relationships, because you become self-preservation then. You turn an inward eye, you look at your own self and build the walls, the strongholds to keep out the pain. So this is an old trick that he uses to destroy relationships and ministries.
The question that went on the locket on chapter 1, it said, having a broken heart. Does having a broken heart affect your faith in God? And the answer is yes. When I think about when Rianne was talking about her, her broken heart was making her be angry at her sister. She's out of character because your heart is broken, and for her facing these challenges, having to manage her life and still have a broken heart, So yeah, it's gonna make you all out.
And it's like no matter how much she tried to hide it, and when everybody talked to her, they knew, it's something wrong.
Right.
Maybe it was her tone, or they was like, something wrong.
Well, she made friends with that misery long enough now. She didn't have her guards up anymore. So she's been living it. So now people are taking notice to it.
But it's like you guys said, like she kind of learned how to adapt and she learned to live her life and to take care of her kids and do her job. And she's kind of going through these motions. And then, for those of the viewers who read the book, you'll see the thing that's setting her off is they're saying, why aren't you answering your phone? And that's a legitimate thing because, her kid is in the hospital having a baby. But it's like the straw that broke the camel's back. And she's like, why are y'all on me about this phone? And she's getting so upset. But like Pastor Crook said, that comes from that brokenness. And she's had to kind of move through life and take care of everything and not really take that time to heal. And then, a thing as small as why aren't you answering your phone, and they're not meaning anything by it, but it's really upsetting her because she has not dealt with her brokenness.
And to add to what you're saying, Rihanna, it's also the calm down. Calm down. I am calm. That's the worst thing you can tell somebody who's upset is to calm down. That's just going to set them off.
Well, especially since she doesn't have validation from her husband. So she's already feeling unvalidated. You know, he didn't want to go to a marriage counselor with her, and he just let her stew in her own juices for this long. And now they telling her how to feel even more, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You know, chapter 2 in the journal, it talks about an untimely lesson, you know, and it says having poor intentions. And Joanne talked about that. Why do you think ultimately the lesson given by Ivan failed? You know, here he is wanting her to trust him and not tell her what's going on. She's both the physician and the mother. And you're not going to be waiting to get to the hospital. What kind of thought was that? You know,
Right.
it just I think he didn't know you're not in that same place with me no more. We're not in that same space.
Right there.
Right.
That's it right there. When you used to be in my heart, you done got pushed.
Yeah, you're not there anymore.
You done got pushed back some. And it's gonna take God to move you back.
You know,
right.
He has no clue he's not there anymore. And that's again that space of time. The Lord said, don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And then it had 8 months of sun, you know, of going down. And he doesn't have that place where she said trust. And you remember, Pastor Ali would call it her inside voice. Her inside voice was going nuts in that.
Yeah.
You got to keep it inside because if you bring it out, it ain't going to turn out right at all.
No.
Let's go stay at the altar.
Her inside voice was going nuts inside. But again, he's not aware. And a lot of times that happens in the relationship where you've let so many issues go on so long. The enemy is hoping to really numb that heart. Get it numb. Get it numb towards that person. Get it not receptive. And then he'll point out, see, he or she is not responding. See, they're just ignoring what you think. See, you didn't put it out there and nothing is done. And it just builds more callous over that.
Well, yeah, and when the fork in the road is so split, you're so lost, you don't know where you are anymore, and you don't know how you got here. Where did it start? Where did it end? Why does every single thing you say and do aggravate me? You know, you got to get back to that root. Where did we veer off? Where did we lose that respect and that, you know, that common? It really is respect for each other,
right?
Okay, clearly, and without self-preservation.
Right. Exactly. Because she's trying to build her own life. She's already in a different place.
Right.
You know, she just told the Lord, I'm done. I've tried, and my best is not good enough. My grandson said to my brother one time, he was playing cards and lost. Your best was not good enough, but nonetheless. She's in a different place, and that's the danger of that time.
Yeah.
It is, because from my own personal experience, when I went to go help Pastor Elvira, I did not want to come back home.
Okay.
I was able to get a week out. I was able to stay a week. Have another week. Can I have another week? Because, you know, because what he's been dealing with, you know, it's kind of, and you're doing it by yourself, and then other things take place, and you're like, okay, because when somebody goes from communicating to not communicating, then you're like, okay, wait a minute now. And me and my closet done had so many prayers. I think myself himself gets into the closet before I actually do. Yeah, well, go here, girl, because I know we need it. So what? We might as well just come on. But I do communicate, and we have a time at night when we do a devotional, and we talk, and we communicate, and then we pray. And and what God had to show me was, I mean, you can't be selfish in your prayer.
Oh, really?
Okay.
What I mean is, I'm like, okay, God, I need him to do this and this and this.
You need to deal with your son, Lord.
Right, exactly. Get your boy. Get your boy.
Because we found the box, you know.
Okay, all right, God, help me now, Jesus. But
So I know it's kind of off topic, but I'm thinking that this may be a question that some of our listeners that may be thinking. How do you go from feeling unheard to feeling heard? Because that's the biggest thing. We can talk, because that's why she got there. She expressed what was going on, and he didn't, you know, he was like, oh, she'll be fine. So she felt unheard. So what would be something we could do, maybe, or what are things that you have done? Let me say it that way, to break that, so you're not finding yourself like she holding all that anger and resentment.
Pray and find somebody to bounce it off of. And you know, I love my sister, and I'll bounce it off her, and she'll be like, okay, now that you finished being frustrated, go pray.
Not only does she say that, she'll be like, you done? Okay, now go eat you some fruit salad. You know, we just gonna have to pick some fruit today. And you don't want to pick no fruit, but yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Let's say you don't want to eat no fruit.
I want him to get some act right. I don't want to pick no fruit. No,
that's it. That's it. That's when I talk about those selfish prayers. Like, don't you know what you
look at him.
No, because I was telling God, we're all the way out here, and literally the closest person to me that I live by, and that's over 2,000 miles away, is my sister. But we still out here without another couple, another couple that we can talk to and hang with, and another couple, another man that, because the Bible says iron sharpens iron. Another man that would be like, that can talk to him like Ivan's dad was talking to him.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we don't have that. That's what I miss.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
so
act right, Pastor Carlton, act right.
It's when we have a show. We're gonna do a show and we're gonna bring them in. So it's gonna be incredible when they come. They're gonna have a whole different perspective.
Yeah, it's gonna be very interesting.
It's gonna be live, but on the real, when you get to the point when you can't feel like you're being heard, you really gonna have to go to God. There's because you're not going to be able to get that confirmation from that person, And if you can, it could be many reasons. It could be maybe the person just can't do it, or maybe the person is still angry. I don't know. But the confirmation will have to come from the Lord to soothe and to help you deal with what you have to deal with. He can take the sting out of it. And that's where you're gonna have to do with that. I think this is for me. I have said, but I got a comment up here. I'm gonna post your comment right here. For me, I've said to my husband, we need to talk, especially when I feel he's not hearing me. Yeah, but I would suggest go to God first so he can take the emotions. the killer.
I don't know what to say, Lord. Help me to say it right, Jesus.
I mean, because when we bounce it off of him first, we can see whether it makes sense. Does that make sense to you guys? We're in the moment. We're in the midst of it. And sometimes it may not come out as intended.
The delivery isn't
And
right.
sometimes after you spend time with God, you don't even feel the need to bring it to your
right.
because it's dealt with, or you're, you know, just whatever the Lord does. You may not even need to bring those unnecessary words.
Right. Because God told me stop overthinking. Because when you're not heard, you will you overthink.
Yeah.
And you know, God had to I had to pray, and God said, stop overthinking. Just stop.
Right.
Just stop.
And you know, it's most women think like that, and most men think in a similar way. You know, like Pastor said earlier, when Ivan said, "I'll tell you at the hospital," he didn't really think that thing through to realize it was going to be a whole thing.
He did not.
He said one thing and maybe had one step. And Kim had already taken it 10 steps beyond that, and with all different scenarios. And that's what they don't understand. That if you don't give, if you don't have that conversation, if you don't give your wife that your actual intention or that actual conversation, she's free to speculate and have all her thoughts of what you may have meant, what she thinks your intention is, what that end result, and it may be, like you said, it's just your own overthinking, and that may not be it at all. But that's the danger of that fork in the road, like Joanne said, and those 8-10 months that pass, is that's 8 months of overthinking something that could have easily been resolved at that fork in the road. Like Pastor said, that's just an attack of the enemy. That's not the enemy, because you have to know, in knowing the character of God, that was never his design for a marriage to be, you know, like she kept on doing her hands, this to go that far for 8 months.
That's why it's so important for us to not just have our separate prayers, but to come together and pray. That's why it's important, because you know, like after I pray, I sit and I just listen to God, and you know, he was like, stop overthinking. You're overthinking too much. It don't always mean what you think. Just trust me. You know, trust God process, because it's always better than yours.
Right. And you do need to filter to him, because in some ways you could be wrong, you know, and you don't know it. You just, sometimes we, you know, the Bible says a man's way is always right to himself. Okay. And so when you get there, and then he start telling you, well, no, what about this and this? If you're honest, like, and then like Pastor Rand said, then after a while, you're like, well, no, I don't need to address this at all. I need to really do something. I'm having this, you know, if you really want to solve, if you just want to play a name game and just be right, then you're going to have a long, hard road.
Yeah.
If you just, your whole goal is, and I'm not saying what she just said, look at that comment, I didn't even forget about that comment up there. It's good to confirm that what you were talking about was true. Don't get me wrong with that. But if you're entering into a discussion just to be right, that's going to be a hard road in anybody's marriage.
They're going to be right and alone. They're going to be right, but they're going to be alone.
Right and lonely.
Right. I have a mantra that
I was right.
When we get
I
to
don't have nobody, but I was right.
I have a mantra in my marriage when we need to go to this place. I just learned last week that there's in Scotland, there's this place called the Isle of Discussion. It's the island of discussion, where they put a couple who is having a dispute. They put them on the island with whiskey and cheese until they can figure it out. So instead of going to the island of discussion, you know, you have to choose the right timing, really. When it's time to have these conversations, you can't want to win. I mean, that can't be your goal, is to be right. If you go into it to be right, you will be miserable. And so my mantra is, I could be right or I could be happy. And so when I enter into these kind of tender conversations, because right away, you know, you have the advantage because you're in tune with your emotions typically, and you can communicate, and you're the needy one, right? You're dealing with pride. Typically, like in this situation, it's a prideful situation. Men as the head of the household, you know, the first thing they're going to do is validate why they do the things they do or say the things they say. And it's never with the intention to hurt us. They love us and we know they love us. It's just maybe they lack empathy. You know, maybe they're not seeing it from our perspective. They are in the position of decision making, you know, as the leader of their household. And so when you tell them you want chickens, or not even you want chickens, somebody in the neighborhood wants chickens. This was a real thing this week. Somebody in the neighborhood wants chickens, and they want the HOA to change their mind to getting chickens. And so I thought, well, before they go and just get chickens, they need to think through all the opposing things. So this was a conversation I had with this person who wants to, you know, make a case for having chickens. So I bring this up to my husband. Communication like this at this. We're not doing this, right? Because his first thing is now he's decision making. I don't want chickens. I don't want chickens. I hope she's not going to tell me that she's going to make a case for getting chickens. Well, that's not what I wanted to tell him. I don't want chickens. I wanted to tell him about somebody else who wanted chickens. But we never got there because right away he became defensive with the, I don't want chickens, you know, and I'm like, wait a minute. So now I get mad because I'm not asking your permission to have chickens. So just like this, you know, the communication perspective is everything in this. And so what happens a lot of times in the marriage is we're only looking at our own perspective. And it's not just the men, you know, it could be the women too, that they have their perspective and they want to win that argument. And that's going to shut it down fast. And so I was so frustrated and mad that I communicated through my teeth like this, with my inside voice being very inside. And then I went inside and I said, Lord, I can't do this, man. This is going to be a long 30 years. If every conversation has to be met with a decision, I just want to have a conversation, you know? So I came back in and I told him that, you know, I'm like, dude, I didn't want your permission to have chickens. Like, you didn't even ask me about who this person is. Do they live here? Like, no, you didn't want to gather information, you know, and that's all I wanted you to do was to see what interests me or what I'm doing or, you know, like be heard, but you weren't hearing me because you were decisioning, you know? And so, but because we communicate through our teeth in that moment, it feels very unloving, you know? And so that could really destroy marriage because then you have to stake your ground. You know, you have to say, this is my hill. Am I going to die on it? You know, and I'm going to be right. And I'm going to go to bed mad. And that's not what the Lord wants at all, because that's the fork in the road right there. You make a decision to lay down your sword and, you know, and say it really had nothing to do with whether or not we would have chickens. But somebody's going to try and have chickens. That could be
I think with Ivan and Kim, he just threw himself into his work because he thought everything was okay. So he threw himself into his work. And when everything hit the fan,
you know, with everything's fine. That's it's easier to not deal with it.
Yeah, that's a sticky head in the sand response.
Right. And she was tearing up her garden. I bet you by the time she finished pulling them weeds, she ain't had nothing left but dirt.
And, you know, I can say this from somewhat experience that I'll say some men, because I don't want to put anybody on Front Street, but that's what they do. They think working, maybe getting an extra job and putting all their time in work, it's going to solve things, and it doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
true. It does not.
it is a real thing. So even that part, what you're saying, Pastor Aaliyah, where he said, well, I just went to work and I had all this stuff, that your marriage is falling apart.
Right. And that's not a defense.
That work you doing, you're going to end up being working. I know I keep using that. You're going to be working it alone. Because that's not solving the issue.
Exactly.
The issue has been presented to you, and you're gonna go get a job. You're gonna go work, and now you're gone even more.
Right, hiding.
Just like when he was putting himself in. So she's sitting up here now. She's stewing because she brought the situation. We need counseling. Our marriage is falling apart, and your solution is she gonna be all right. I got these, you know, these cases. I'm gonna just put more time in work instead of your marriage.
Yeah,
That's
but
why she got so mad when he left the hospital. You left to go back to work? It's like he was pushing that envelope even further.
yeah, but he would have to. I'm gonna go with Joanne on this. Not that I'm disagreeing with you guys, but if you're 8 months in a separate room,
Yeah, you know there's a problem. Yeah.
I mean, it's not
That part.
a Hawkins discovery. You know, this is
Right.
you should be concerned 8 hours or 8 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before you go to bed, why you in this room? Why you not in here with me?
Especially if you're any kind of a husband, I don't think, and we can say that, but I'm sure it's not just us. Husbands gonna sleep in a separate room.
Right.
I could be mad as he's still not gonna go in no separate room. He gonna be up in my face. You know what I'm saying? Like what husbands and don't realize it. Like if it ever they're gonna nip that before it even get to that point. So the fact that it got to that point that long.
Right.
That's cowardly.
It's like Pastor Leanne said. He had his head stuck in the sand. That's what he was doing. By staying busy at work and thinking we've had these little disagreements before, so she'll get over it. But she was getting over it. She was getting ready to get herself over it.
Yeah,
that's what she was doing.
What did she tell her mother-in-law? Oh, I'm already setting up how to take care of myself.
Yeah,
I'm setting up how to do me. I've been doing me, so I'm gonna set up how to do me.
Right.
And just from the first couple of chapters in his mind, he probably wasn't thinking that she won't go that far.
Right.
That's exactly what they think.
You haven't been where you at now before.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And they're looking at the longevity of the marriage too, right? Excuse me. Because once you've been with someone, I think someone mentioned earlier, it's the commonality that goes into play. We've been together so long, we'll get over it. We'll get through this. She'll get over that.
Yeah. And then they also, I mean, you know, there's times too that they know that you're a virtuous woman, you're a Christian woman. You're not going to leave. You're not going to walk out the door. You love, you know, the blessing and
you're shaking her head like
that's on that.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what they think. You know, they don't.
Yeah.
They don't
It's
realize
you
might not leave in a sense of a divorce, or because you're not going to do that because it's not a justifiable reason, right?
But you're gonna want to break.
You know what I'm saying? You might wonder, like, why is she in Jamaica again? Like, did she just come back? Why is she over there? You know, okay. Just saying. She shows a lot of girlfriends.
She's doing a lot of girlfriends.
Yeah, true though.
I mean, it's true.
Did your sister get another surgery? Go help again. I need to go help again.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true. And I think Joanne can speak to this a lot greater than all of us. The longevity is probably what killed him on this. You know, because he became to forecast her behavior.
Yeah.
You know, he thought he could forecast it. You know, and we've been here before, you know, she'll get over it, etc., so forth. But she's a changed person since the days of young, you know, and there was an expectation. And he just said, oh, you know, I don't know how one day turned into a month and a month turned into the next month. I have no clue how you could have allowed that to happen, except that you became very common because the relationship had this longevity with it.
Because I'm
especially when he calls a year, it happened so fast. A year is fast to you,
right?
That no concept.
And she was probably still holding on to we're going to work this out. Because she was still there. She hadn't left the house yet.
Right.
And she was thinking that, okay, we're going to work this out. And she was still praying. But she was probably praying some more like, God, I need you to help me to find a house.
But she did say she had stopped praying for that. And she had started praying for her own civility and
Right. So
Her own self-preservation.
yeah,
but she had to have some little hope because she hadn't left the house.
yeah.
Or
So she
timing.
still had to have some type of hope that it'll work
It
out.
could be that her son is having a baby. Why throw all this in the pot? You know, women will be sensitive in that way, and
Right.
just wait
Right.
for this get underneath the water. You know, but when we look at from chapter 1 to chapter 5, Ivan don't have a clue.
No.
That's the thing. And that's what happens if you stay together long and don't really invest in the person. You know, if you stay together long and you don't invest in the person, like my my husband told me he liked asparagus. I've been my husband forever. I never know he liked asparagus. And then the other day, I was looking at some Converse. He's like, "You like Converse?" I was like, "Yeah." He said, "I've been with you this long. You never told me."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can be in a relationship for a long time and just overthink the person and then think you actually know that person and not take the time to invest in that person. And like I could say, I'm gonna leave those closing words to Joanne as we get ready to close the show. She's been married for 40 years. And if you're not careful, you'll just think you know that person in totality.
You get extra comfortable.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
we can
do.
be comfortable with each other, not comfortable to the point where
No, you really do. And expectations change too in the marriage, you know. I mean, there's times where it's almost like, well, with me and my husband, not only are we married for a long time, but we've worked together for the majority of those years, right next to each other. And now we're in retirement together and we moved out to the country. So we only see wildlife and neighbors that want chickens. But so we really are very kind of secluded to just the two of us. And it gets to the point where his expectation can be almost like where I'm an extension of his physical body. So I didn't run fast enough to get whatever it was, or, you know, like his arm would go and reach for something. You know, it's to that point where it's like, well, what took you so long? Well, because I picked up the shoes and I fed the dog and I did this, that, and the other thing before I got you. Well, you know, so we have a term. We say we went around the block. You know, I went around the block because, you know, you also have your own things. So you get to the point where, you know, that intertwining, it's the where does he start and where do I end comfort level. And then you really feel like, you know, the lack of independence becomes a whole nother thing. You know, it's different. It's different. You're no longer guarded with each other at all, really, you know. And you're so comfortable with each other. Like I said, it's where do I end and he begin. And then you need to make that space for your own, to cherish each other, you know, because you become like slippers, you know, comfortable, predictable, you know, and we are individual people. We die independently of each other, you know, and like the Lord says, even in our walk with him, it's about finishing well, you know, so it's the journey to enjoy, yes, but it's the finishing well too. I mean, it's till death do us part. So like I said, when, you know, he's decisioning all day and I'm just communicating, no big decision needed, you know, I'm like, Lord, this is going to be a long 30 years. How do I unravel this? Like, where is the root problem here? You know? And so that's when I realized, you know what, you need to have more empathy and more compassion. And even to the point where I realized that, like, when somebody would say, hey, have a good day, he'd say, thank you. And I say, okay, instead of saying thank you, say you too. You know, like just even that much when you're that secluded, you don't feel the need. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just us. We're old. But God is good, and his word just cuts right to the heart of the matter. It really does. But like Pastor Elvira said in the book, most people need intervention. Most people need that fly on the wall, the iron, to sharpen their iron when they've become dull, you know? And that's why God made the church, you know? And so to have those kind of mentors and relationships for when we go off track and off the rails, so they can
Right.
help identify the cause, because we get lost in the minutia of it, you know. So that's where the vulnerability to seek help, you know, that humility is where that trust can be rebuilt if you're not able to face those hard conversations yourself. And it really takes humility to get it. You not go in. Your objective has to be a health of the relationship. Your objective is not to win that battle. You know, like I said, the mantra, I can be right or I can be happy. I have to choose what to be right about every day, you know. Of course, most of the time I am right.
We usually are.
But
I agree.
when I'm not.
Yes, we are.
Just to continue, as you folks, I appreciate all our beautiful hosts. Remember, we're talking about the book Journey to the Water, and you can get it on Amazon, or either you can get it herstory.ec@gmail.com. Make sure before we go off that you like and subscribe and share. We know that someone could be listening to us and they could be saying, "My marriage is in trouble. My heart is broken. It's look bad," just like this book, you know. So we're not going to leave without praying for you guys and praying for the hope of the Lord, because we're being real. Without God, we can't do this. We wouldn't be the 30, the 40, the 20, the 25, the 10.
Prison sentences. Dr. Craig said Joanne did 40 years and she's not in prison orange.
She's not in prison orange. You know what I mean? It's, you know, so. And we know he takes us to the valleys, and as Pastor Lee opened up, it's not a promise of a perfect marriage, because there's imperfect people. So how could that ever be? Right. You know, but it's a promise of a hopeful marriage where we can go to God. So, you know, let me just pray before we get ready to end our wonderful time together. Any couple that's listening to us, and if you want the help of the Lord, which he'll give so graciously. Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you that you're the author, you're the builder, you're the creator and sustainer of marriage. And God, we pray for anyone now who is struggling in their marriage, meeting challenges, the things that we talked about, communication, difficulties, conferment, all the different things that is needed, love, respect. God, we ask for your divine intervention, that they reach out to you and you flood them with living waters in their marriages, God. You establish marriage, therefore we can ask for your help, because this is your institution. This is the way you want us to dwell together. And God, I ask you to build the wife, build the husband, build the family, God. I ask for your complete mercy and love and loving kindness to strap around this family and cause them to live out your purposes and glow with your hope. God, we lift up every marriage listening here, and we pray that they'll seek your face and find their purposes and find their delight in you, so that you can cause the marriage to flourish and grow and shine forth and be fruit for other marriages in hope of you. In Jesus' name, amen. Listen, guys, so glad each and one of you joined. Listen, share. We're going to come back. So that's why you have to subscribe. And we're going to do the rest of chapters in our book. But we thank all of our listening audience on there. And your comments, thank you so much for your comments on this. And so for myself, Pastor Elvira and Pastor Arlia, Pastor Rianne, Joanne, and Minister Antoinette, we thank you so much for joining us. And guess what? It's a new view. Bye-bye.
Bye.